Hey, we're looking at another edition of Texas Fishing Tips. This is Captain Paul Brawley with Fish Finder Guide Service. We're going to be looking today, going a little bit south of Bird Island. We're going to be looking at all of this area here, back up to what we call Coyote, from Big Cove to Coyote. The very east drop, right off the sand, has been holding trout. So you can power pole down up on this sand. It's probably about thigh deep there, and throw your baits out into the deeper water. There's been quite a few nice trout through there, and you should be able to get limits. We're using croakers, number 7 cow hooks, free lined, and we have been finding quite a few trout. Now during the day, as it gets to be a little later, 9 and 10, you have to move out here a little ways, a quarter of the way in between where the shelf is and these spoils. About a quarter of the way out here, there's been some pretty decent trout. That's kind of why I have that other line out here circled. Anyway, that has been holding some decent trout. If it gets to be nice and warm and sunny midday, you can certainly look on top of all of these sandbars right here, maybe wade down them, and there should be some redfish as well as some black drum cruising those. I like sight cast them. I will use any type of a lure that has a little sparkle in it during the middle of the day, maybe like a silver or silver or white that has silver sparkles in it. You could use a little smaller gold spoon, smaller silver spoon, and sight cast reds up and down that. I always say to carry a few shrimp in your shirt pocket or in your lure bag in case you see black drums. You can switch out real quick and maybe catch a few of those drums that cruise up and down those sandbars, as they're excellent table fare. You can try the back sides of these spoils. There has been quite a few trout around them, but I would be looking more along the lines of trying to hang a flounder, maybe a redfish or a black drum, getting out and wading in that waist to possibly lower knee-deep type water and throwing in all those sand holes. For the flounder, you want to try using the larger Berkeley Gulp, the 4-inch Berkeley Gulp shrimp pattern. I prefer the white or the natural or molten. I think it's like a grayer color, a white or a gray. And using a 1/4-ounce jig head, throwing over in them sand holes and moving it real slow through the bottom. Maybe you'll get one to hang on. If you do get that flounder bite, make sure you give him a little bit of time. Don't try to set the hook immediately. And then also using paddle tails and gold spoons behind all these islands, looking for some redfish. There are bird signs, but I do believe that is ended for now. I believe that runs from about October through March. So I think you're good to go wading around behind those signs. Anyway, that area right there should produce you guys some fish, and we'll be moving a little further south next. All right, we're going to be talking about the north shoreline, which is tide gauge, and across the south shoreline, which is Penascal Point, or actually Black's Bluff is what I call it. I don't know, the new timers, I don't know what they call it, but I call it Black's Bluff. Anyway, these two sides, depending on your wind, if you get a heavy southeast wind coming back this way, this whole edge right here is very rocky. So when you're going to come in off of Rivera Channel runs right here. It's very rocky. Come in easy. Troll, watch your depth finder. When you get into about 3 foot of water, power pole down. Don't be alarmed if you're hearing rocks on your power poles, and start throwing croakers with the wind to your back. So you're going to be throwing croakers up Baffin basically, and you will come up with some really quick limits with some really nice trout. Also, if the wind's blowing southeast back this way, you're going to get on the outside of tide gauge bar here. Take your trolling motor, work your way up there till you get in about 4 foot depth of water. Power pole down and start throwing back towards tide gauge. There's many little grass bars and sandbars and just humps through there This whole area has a ton of trout. Most people fishing there right now are getting limits in just minutes. We are also just using our croakers, free lining them, number 7 Kell hook, and looking for those quick limits of trout. Out here on the wall of rock, this whole area here, and around here on the point of Penascal, both have trout. I don't think the limits are quite as quick. I do think there is plenty of fish there. If you just wanted to go and hang out, power pole down, throw some croakers down there, and a little bit more relaxed pace, and you will catch your trout in that area too. But both the the north and the south shoreline of Baffin, which would be Black's Bluff and Tie Gauge Bar, are holding a lot of trout. It is like insane fast through there. Really good fishing. All right, let's look at Yarborough. Yarborough is this whole area right here. Mainly what we're going to do is look at these spoils. All these spoils that separate the intercoastal from Yarborough. We're going to be using, if you can get it, live shrimp and rattle corks. And you're going to be throwing those corks right up behind these little islands. And they're all little rocky islands. And you're going to be getting as close to those spoils with your corks as you can, popping them. This, from about halfway through Yarborough to 3/4 of the way right in here, is all going to be mainly trout, possibly some sheephead. But as you get north in Yarborough, where it squeezes down, this little squeeze right here, as you get north, you're going to start finding out there's some redfish, some trout, some black drum, and a few sheepheads behind all these islands as you get the further north in this. So it's still the same thing. We're going to be using popping corks and shrimp all behind these spoils. We'll be looking for nice trout further south and more reds and drum in the mix the further north on these spoils you go. This back side where this sandbar is right here, this whole drop is great wade fishing. Get out to your waist out there, throw those croakers out deep. Man, you will whack some trout back in there and possibly a couple of reds. But the trout that get on that back shoreline are really nice. A lot of fun, tons of trout. It's mainly wading. You do better from over here from the boat back behind these spoils. But if you wanted to wade, that whole bar, and it runs all the way around, and I mean all the way around back up to here, all of that is really good fishing, wading out to about your waist and throwing those croakers out there, pretty far. Still using the number 7 Kell hook, looking for those trout. Your limits are 15 to 20 inch trout. So for sure you're going to catch some overs, some unders, and the right perfect fish in there. If you're looking for flounder, sometimes this time of year, these little channels that come through here are holding the flounder. You can try out that. What you do is just walk down the edges of those spoils, throwing your Berkeley gulp, kind of working it slow, and looking for those flounders that are hanging out in that area. All this is super shallow around here. So these fish that are getting in this little channel, these little channels right here, and I think there's one more I'm missing right in here. There's another little channel. All of those channels will be holding the flounder right on the edges of them. So that's a good place to take a look, possibly pick up a couple of good flounders. Those channels go further in, but really around the first, where it makes that Y and the first 100 yards of both those channels, you're going to do much better on. Anyway, that's it for this week's edition of Texas Fishing Tips. I hope you catch a lot of fish. You guys be nice to each other. Don't get in any boat fights.